Good afternoon and good evening. I think we have a very interesting topic in front of us today, state response to cyber threat against critical infrastructure. And we got a very esteemed panel, which I shall introduce. I am told that each of you would have about 15 minutes speaking time. So before you all start, let me take some time and give my thoughts and then hand it over to you uh, to discuss this topic further. So if you see today, the well-being of a nation, its economy and resilience is invariably linked with its critical infrastructure, as it can have a devastating effect in the event of any disruptions in its functioning. In view of the increased connectivity and dependability of the critical infrastructure on ICT across sectors, this critical infrastructure has become vulnerable to cyber attacks. The focus of attacks on the critical information infrastructure is broadly divided in three types, which are fraudulent or malicious actions leading to monetary benefits, espionage for stealing sensitive information, and third is sabotage leading to disruption of services. The actors involved in such attacks range from non-state actors to state actors, as well as corporate entities engaged in espionage and maligning brand reputation. We've also seen cyber jihadists have been dabbling in volumetric distributed denial of service attacks. The consequences of such incidents, specifically related to industrial control systems, are usually far greater than the associated financial losses and reputation damage, as it involves cost or loss of lives and can also have a long-lasting impact on the environment. When it comes to state response to cyber threats against critical infrastructure, they need to first understand the attack vectors and immediate steps to be taken for mitigation, response, and recovery. That is primarily the technical aspects. Then there is need to deal with the threat of data disclosures and reputation management, which is primarily into the legal and economic aspects. And finally, the government and industry, as well as government and government, how can they collaborate and what can they do? That is the diplomatic aspects. States, if you see today, are engaged in a continuous struggle for power. A coordinated cyber, physical, or hybrid operation conducted on or through critical infrastructure could directly have an impact on the political and military capabilities of a state. Thus, a lack of strategic vigilance by the critical infrastructure providers would allow the perpetrators to exploit the hybrid vulnerabilities with cascading and alarming impact due to the broad spectrum of dimensions and domains of critical infrastructure, ranging from economy, technology, information, society, culture, psychology, legal thresholds, etc. Accordingly, there is need for the states to develop appropriate resilient capabilities, mechanisms, and frameworks for individual and collective action so as to challenge hostile activities so that the costs likely to be incurred by the inimical actors outweigh their potential gains. As the complexity, frequency, and sophistication of cyber attacks continues to increase, the pandemic has amply highlighted that we are codependent, interconnected, and vulnerable. Post the pandemic, with respect to critical infrastructure, each of us should consider what kind of society, government, and industry we wish to create for the future. Should states continue to use power in a negative manner, leading towards destructive activities, including cyber espionage, sabotage, and war? Or should states embark on shared power by using it positively to create a global knowledge society with extraordinary opportunities for innovation, possible elimination of cyber threats, and creation of a resilient global digital economy? With that as the question, I am going to leave it to the esteemed panelists to discuss this in further detail and educate all of us. And today we have Mr. Erez Kreiner, who is a fellow at the Institute of Counter-Terrorism at the Interdisciplinary Center, IDC. He served more than 5 years as the director of Israel's National Cybersecurity Authority and was responsible for preventing cyber attacks on Israel's critical infrastructures and assets, and led national teams to oversee cyber and data security. Mr. Kreiner is the president, co-founder, and head of cyber defense and technology at 5C, an innovative cyber security solutions provider based in Israel. We also have Professor Triveni Singh, who is currently serving as Superintendent of Police, Cybercrime at the Indian Police Services. His core task is to investigate complex cybercrime cases and provide administrative and technical supervision to the department. He has a wide exposure in dealing with cases related with anti-corruption, vigilance, economic offenses, money laundering, and cyber crimes. The third panelist that we have is Mr. Oren Elimelech. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Apologies otherwise. Who is a fellow at the Institute of Counter-Terrorism at the IDC, Israel. He also serves as the Chief Information Security Officer and head of the Cyber and Information Security Regulatory Manager at the Ministry of Transport and Road Safety in Israel. He is a cybersecurity expert, researcher, and consultant for security and governmental offices, financial institutions, corporations, and various enterprises. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Dominic Karunesudas, who is the managing editor, Drone Desk, Technetics Consulting. He has over 18 years of professional experience in high technology consulting, such as cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning, along with media and technology entrepreneurship. He regularly briefs the Prime Minister's office, national security agencies, the Armed Forces of India, parliamentarians, and defense attaches on matters related to applied technology for national and economic security. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Erez Kreiner for his remarks and educating us. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Being the director of the Israeli Cybersecurity Authority for a couple of years, I had to deal with a lot of threats from a wide spectrum that were aiming to sabotage the Israeli infrastructures. We've seen cyber attacks on those infrastructure, which includes, as in any modern country, electricity, water, finance, and anything you can think of, transportation. They were all being attacked. Being Israel in a pretty tough neighborhood, we actually had to deal with those cyber attacks almost every day, and it was part of my day-to-day life to understand, to examine, and to decide what is needed to be done in order to avoid any damage to the Israeli infrastructures. We had very, I would say, talented challenges because our opponents are pretty talented guys. You know the neighborhood that we live in. Part of our enemies have 5,000 years of history, and they are very clever with all their, I would say, scientific environment. So we had to deal with the most sophisticated, I would say, viruses, Trojan, and other malicious software that was aiming to hit those infrastructures. Being in that situation, Israel developed, both in the governmental and in the private sector, a lot of solution for those threats. Some of these solutions are known widely and globally. Some of them are still secrets and classified because when you deal with an innovative opponent, you need to be very innovative with your defense. And actually, the point of view that we took when we came to defend on our assets was the point of view of an attacker, what he's going to do, and where can we be smarter than the attacker. It's not an easy task. It's a very complex one, and you need to fuse and to infuse and to combine a lot of talent from many different areas and arenas. It's not enough that you are a very talented engineer. It's not enough that you are a very talented operation officer. You need to understand how to combine the wisdom and the smartness that was developed during 5,000 or 10,000 years of combating in the physical, in the kinetic arena, and how you can push them and how you can translate them into the cyber arena. I hope we did it well. I hope everybody is still doing it well, and I hope I can contribute to this panel with the experience and the other things that I've done since I've left my governmental position. Thank you.
And now request Professor Triveni Singh.
Yeah, good evening. Good. Good evening, Bahl साहब, आवाज आ रही है मेरी? Hello.
हाँ जी, बिल्कुल आ रही है.
Yeah. So recently we are seeing that there are a lot of attack news, cyber attack news in the news media. For the last 1 month, I have seen that there have been attack over a famous pharmaceutical company. I mean, basically it was a case of data breach related to Dr. Reddy or Dr. Path Lab, and then the Haldiram. But as far as government sector is concerned and critical infrastructure is concerned, I am investigating 3 cases which are related with our state data center. In fact, our application related with public distribution system and the power sector billing system and the mining department billing system, it's all hosted on the state data centers. Somehow the criminals, they created the similar website. They created a fake web page embedded with a fake QR code, and then they tried to appear that it's a genuine certificates, and they befool the supervisory officers from the mining department and the police department. The police officer and mining department thought it's a genuine document, and there were mining transport worth crore of rupees one. It's being transported to other states and other districts without paying the royalty. And the same thing happened in case of power sector billing, in which a fake user ID in the name of senior officers, senior power sector officers were created, and there used to be adjustment of lakhs of rupees of billing. They used to manipulate. The whole point is that if there is no awareness among the employees who are operating or who are at the front, front line, and they are not aware about the cyber security, then this will continue to happen. The problem is that we have critical information infrastructure policy guidelines, but nobody is aware. There is no training program, there is no workshop, and even if in the name of workshop and conferences or training program we are conducting, the officers are not technically so competent to understand the basic technology. And that's why those who are mining and those who are in the top position, they don't understand the technology. And that's why they cannot decide the priority, how to secure the state data center. Once I was investigating a case, I went to the data center and I talked about the firewall logs. The techno guy who was sitting there, he told me that of course we go through the firewall logs, but for the last 6 months nobody looked at the firewall logs. There were lots of alerts, but nobody cared about, because there is no sense of cyber security, there is no sense of accountability they feel. And that's why this is the case that nobody is serious about cyber security, be it in critical infra or be it in any sector for that matter. And that's why if we're talking about the dark web, you have lots of data related with critical infra on the dark web. Certainly it's cases of data breach, be it by the state actors or by non-state actors, by activists and hackers. And in most of the cases, the insider who has passed on those information, or they have sold the information to the criminal, they have uploaded it in the dark web, or even in the underground cybercrime market, it's being sold and purchased. Every data, every confidential data related with banking industry and insurance industry is available, of course, at the premium. You can purchase it. My point is that we need to focus on capacity building. We need to create a dedicated technical cadre to manage all this, because we are going digital, but our capability, our mindset, our education, our skill is not in digital mode, because our recruitment were basically for a different purpose. All of a sudden we started getting digital everywhere, but technically we cannot update, and we cannot update ourselves so fast, because most of us they have their background in humanities and law, and very little and very few of them have their background in computer science or technology. And after a certain is I have found that senior bureaucrats and senior officers, they lose their interest in technology things. And that's why, because there is no technical tone at the top, even the junior level or middle officers, they take it lightly, and that's why that attack are happening. So my take is, and my point of view is that we need to focus on capacity building, number one. Capacity building seriously, not for 2-3 days conferences. We have to teach them, we have to give them hands-on training for 15 days, 1 month. Some specialized courses must be run for those who are manning the critical infra, and from the top to bottom, even from CEO to the junior most who is running and who are sitting at the front line, they need to be educated. And second thing is that if there is a breach, there is no clear-cut breach notification policy. If somebody is not notifying the CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team, or the NICP, then what will be the repercussion? They will be penalized. Will there any be criminal or civil case against them? It's not clear. And that's why even when I talk to the corporate sector, they don't have any idea about, even if they know that there is a breach or data breach, whom to report. Is breach notification mandatory for them? They don't have any idea. When I talk to some senior officer in the banking industry, RBI issued information security management system long back in 2013. But even 7 years past, even branch managers, they are not aware about the information security management system, which must be enforced and implemented across all the verticals in banking systems. Nobody is aware. I'm talking about the branch managers who is supposed to be highly literate and technical. So what to talk about those who are working at a junior level, those who are clerks and mid-level managers. That's why my point of view is that we must create a buzz around cybersecurity awareness among all cadres, among all departments. Everything is digital, so we don't have to leave any department because each and every department is integrated. So there has to be a massive training program. It should be organized at each and every level. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you for that. With that, I'm going to be inviting Mr. Oren for his remarks. I think both the first and second panelists have given the next two panelists additional 10 minutes. So kindly be free to use as much of time you want. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Oren Elimelech. How are you doing? In my role as Ministry of Transport and Road Safety Security Advisor for the last 8 years, and also a fellow researcher in the ICT here in Herzliya, I've been working on cybersecurity for quite some time. In Ministry of Transport, we face numerous challenges, and these challenges are quite diverse. And I actually prepared a small slide in order to explain about the encompasses and what needs to be involved in this specific realm, okay? And I'm going to share something with you just briefly, so you better understand the predicaments that involves in my work. And this brief slide demonstrates this, because Ministry of Transport is quite diverse. It includes a lot of areas, and these are multiple challenges that we need to address. And most of these areas involve critical infrastructure. And I'm sure that you've seen the latest news. And in the last several days here in Israel, a lot of companies, a lot of infrastructure in the last few days and also in the last few months have faced cyber attacks. And this is something very serious. And what the country needs to do is it's quite profounding in this manner. And I believe this includes multiple steps that needs to be addressed. And doing my work, what we do in Ministry of Transport, we are trying to build something for the industry. And this includes multiple areas that we want the companies to be more involved. Because currently we are advising on these areas what they should do. And this specific things include multiple key areas that we want them to address. And mostly this includes building them a lifecycle framework. We're trying to help them evaluate their security. And by doing so, the country helps, specifically in my area, Ministry of Transport, tries to help them become more responsible, to understand what they're facing, what their current threats inside their involvement. And by helping them build a strategy, policies, understanding what is the actual risk that they're facing, looking also at supply chains and trying to better educate them, this helps us build better security into their environments. And I agree with my colleagues here that everybody should rise up and be more aware and vigilant into this manner. And Israel is doing a lot of work in this area. And I believe this is something that is common to all of us. And looking in this key area, Ministry of Transport has divided a very specific program, which involves a multi-layer approach, that the rationale is something that, again, I'm going to share with you how we do this in Ministry of Transport. And I'm more of a slide, guys, and talking, and then I can ask several questions. But we need to address several areas. This includes freight, roads, bridges, aviation, ports, everything included together. And we're trying to build resiliency into this manner in the state level. And whether if it's education or becoming more vigilant, but enable them to develop their own cybersecurity strategy by building them risk management. But we're also looking at the operational manner, because when you look, for example, in transportation and critical infrastructure that give services, you need to have something that is always continuous. You need to be aware of the operations. You need to be able to understand the business. And the rationale behind this is that you need not to be disconnected from the actual impact or the probability, which is a risk score, but also what involves the business landscape. And the Ministry of Transport's business landscape is quite diverse, as I've mentioned. So you need to understand exactly what key assets you are protecting and what is the current threat landscape, and to build a risk map around these. But this is business driven, all right? This is quite important to understand. This is business driven and needs to be operational, because you don't want to put too much security that people can't commute. Just today, and this morning, the country enabled people to pay via the mobile phone. And by enabling to pay via the mobile phone, it involves more risks. But again, we're trying to build something that is more feasible, more approachable, and more adapted to technology by balancing this. And this involves a lot of things in a lot of key areas, but most of all is understanding the operational business asset, what we want to protect. Understanding the actual prioritization for each one of those business assets. What is the functionality needed? And something that is sometimes missing from many other things is customer experience. What is the end results for the customer? Because you can protect as much as critical infrastructure as you want, but in the end, if you're not able to give service, there's no point in this. In cybersecurity is always the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability. But when you're looking at critical infrastructure, you need to have reliability. You need to have safety. You need to have performance. The SRP is quite different. Safety, reliability, and performance is different than CIA. So you need to have optimization and balance between everything together. And having this with an all-around cyber strategy is quite important, because incidents are going to happen. The recent cybersecurity incident, in the last 3 months, I've been involved in dozens of cybersecurity incidents that were all over the television, critical infrastructures, insurance company, financial, medical, shipping, freights, whatever. This is something that's going to happen. So you need to be able to be resilient, build this inside, to have the capability to mitigate, to contain, and eradicate any incident and go back to normal. And by understanding who is going to attack you, you're going to build your most top threat scenarios. And you need to understand where is the threat coming from. If it's the top threat for you could be dozens of them, but if it's sensitive data, operational damage, or insider threats, each one of these has nothing to do with cyber, but a cyber can leverage this to become something that is quite huge to, for example, leak all sensitive driver registrations from our database, or leak all car registration that happened, for example, in other countries in the world, or have some specific information deleted regarding the maintenance of planes or any of this matter. So by understanding this, we're able to lower for each one of these threats by understanding how to approach these areas. And this is what the country is doing. And we're doing this for all transportations in Israel, whether if it's naval, aerial, freight, road, and whatever. And this is something that I think is quite important for the country to be involved in and build this capability. And I'm happy to be part of that. And it's something that I think that I'm grateful for the country to enable me to do so, because it enjoys my work immensely. And I believe we are all part of this together to build this resiliency. So I'm going to conclude with 2 more slides just to keep you further involved. So looking forward, all right, is the way that I see it. You need to be able to understand a business-driven top-down approach. For example, what is the most important in the terms of the business? For example, data leakage, damage to operation productivity, insider threats. Also, incorporate top-down with a bottom-up and become more technology, more aware, and build specific cyber scenarios, and then see if this is feasible or not. So my final words is for you and to this panel is we need to find out what's important to our businesses, what's important to our customers, what's important in terms of critical, and understand what is the real impact, and then build our approach around that. And that is what I have to say, and thank you. And if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you. We'll take the questions after Dominic has finished his. So go ahead, Dominic, the floor is all yours. You've got 30 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Sanjay, and good evening, namaskaram to everybody. The challenge with being the last speaker is most of the previous speaker has, in bits and pieces, covered some of the critical aspects. But coming from India and representing the challenges of tech-driven developing nation, we come up with multiple challenges at various fronts. And in a lot of clear cases, the government agencies are under tremendous pressure to deliver, and they are trying their level best to pursue the given agenda, but the challenges are more than what can be taken up. Also because getting the right skill dedicated towards a cause is a big challenge. But coming back, one of the key challenges as we grow in India will be, we are yet to understand the full power of internet bandwidth penetration across the country. So what I mean by that is the rural India is very ambitious, and they are keen to be online and do the transaction because it helps make life easier. So increasing bandwidth and high aspiration is one of the key factors. With the government of India pushing for digital India, cybercrime percentage is only going to increase. There are multiple open source information about the percentage of rise in cybercrime. So it's not going anywhere. It is only going to increase. So anybody who thinks or assumes that we will bring state-of-the-art artificial intelligence or machine learning or the new jargon technologies on the go and the problem will be solved, they are living in some dream paradise. All the best to them. It will not solve ever. Or the only thing that people can do, if they are willing to do, is cooperate with each other, learn from each other, maybe build case studies, understand what were the flaws, and from there on build on it so that similar cases can be tackled much better. If I ask most of the countries or most of the CEOs or the CFO or the CXO of a company or an organization, tell me the 5 steps that you will do when there is a cyber attack in your organization. And I can assure you 99% of the answers would be 0 because they will be blank. They do not know what are the first, forget the first 5. First step to be done when there is an incident in their organization. And this is not limited to just organizations, even individuals. On daily basis, I get some of my friends, cousins, somebody being a victim of some sort of a cybercrime on a social media page or in their organization, somebody stealing insider information, and they don't know what next to do. And it sounds funny to me because in today's world, the easiest thing that anybody can get is information, right? You go online, you type few things, you spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes, you can get information. But still, it is a big challenge. On top of having increasing bandwidth and more Indians getting connected online, we also have new technologies such as IoT coming up, wireless technologies coming up, individuals using more than 3 or 4 mobile phones, right? This is the only nation where we have implemented 2-factor authentication for banking, but nevertheless, the number of cybercrime doesn't go down. And as Professor Triveni mentioned earlier, the level of awareness is extremely low, also because in the law enforcement, if you get hold of a robber or of a criminal, you may get a promotion, but what do you do if you get a cyber criminal? Nobody really gives a cares about them, right? It is one of those side stuff, maybe like a traffic policeman standing and managing traffic, but that's the lifeblood for most of us who are on the road, stuck in traffic for 2 hours and imagining where is the traffic guy, right? So awareness is very critical. But the challenge with awareness is also something like this based on my experience. We get invitations to school, colleges, organizations. Maybe we speak for half an hour, maybe we speak for 1 hour. The kids maybe 10% are really passionate of understanding cybercrime because they relate cybercrime with hacking, right? They're crazy about hacking, right? So what the first question a boy or a girl will ask is, sir, how can I become a great hacker? How to hack this system, right? That is the question. So fair enough. Some of them can be great and some of them can make really great career, no problem. But 90% of the crowd are sitting in the hall because the teacher or the elder has enforced on them, sit here, listen to this person. So anyway, 75% of the whole logic is lost. When you're forcing somebody to listen something, they won't grasp it, right? You have to apply things based on what they do. So what are the kids doing? When I say kids, those who are born after the 1990s are way ahead of us. We have to respect them. We have to understand that they come up from a different universe. The way they look at technology and social media is absolutely different. For example, those who are born in 2020, by the time they are 10 years old, cryptocurrency would be a reality. For them, money and paper would mean nothing probably, right? It is all about digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. So we have to learn and unlearn aspects where we can speak their language so they can absorb it better, right? Rather than using big jargons and mumbo jumbo, it may sound cool about certain things, but it will not work. So we have to really break it down to the minuscule level of what is it that we are trying to achieve so that we can achieve it to the optimum. Also sharing of case studies. If you read and understand the cyber attack on Georgia, this happened after the attack on Estonia. But if you speak to those concerned leaders, cyber security leaders in Georgia, they never discussed with Estonia of what was the cyber attack, how was it, and what did they do. They never bothered about learning that. And a similar sort of attack happened on them, and the adversaries who were attacking it were quite successful in that. Now, having said that, the other challenge is also ineffective legislation and policies. And what I mean by that is, it's unfair to say that those who are making the law in their respective countries, the lawmakers in their parliament, that they will know everything. They won't, right? Their business is not to learn transport policies or space policies or cyber policies or stuff like that, right? They have to win elections, they are there and they have to fulfill certain things. And that is exactly where subject matter experts have to engage with multiple parties and ensure that the right person deciphers complicated topics in a manner that they can absorb and dissolve in themselves. Having said that, the challenge also is a lot of bureaucrats do not take interest. It's only when there is a problem, they try to figure out what pill can we use this time to solve this disease. And when it's done, back to square one, something else, right? So there needs to be a lot more discussion and engagement, different friendly nations. And like the first speaker, Erez mentioned, tough neighborhood. We understand tough neighborhood because we are one of those lucky nations who have very loving neighbors, right? Whose sole mission is to make sure that we are not doing well. And one of the easiest way, because on internet attacks, attribution is extremely difficult. There are multiple instances of cyber attack owing onto our critical information infrastructure, both from the Western Front and the Eastern Front. And it's not going to go away. The only scope is we enhance our capabilities and learn the required skills to push and punch above our weight. Now, cybersecurity is a multidimensional topic. However, the core of it continues to be a technical subject. Hence, assuming that some bodies like AICTE, which is a body in India, that they will define what a college student should learn and understand, it's not going to solve the problem. We have to open up the doors, allow outsiders to engage with them, discuss with them, and figure out how things can be executed better. I don't know the exact number, but I think somewhere I read that India is running short of 20 or 25 lakh trained cybersecurity officers, professionals. Let's say even if it's 10 lakhs, half of it, and the kids today are saying from engineering colleges or any college for that matter, not necessarily engineering college, that they are not getting a proper job. Whereas the industry is looking for trained cybersecurity professionals, which means that there is a job and the boys and girls are not getting job. That means there is a skill issue. So getting the right skill to the youngsters will ensure that they get a high paying, stable job, because at the end of the day, it's about enhancing a skill, right? It doesn't mean that everybody needs to become a coder. It's not for everybody, right? And the best part in this space of information technology is it doesn't matter your educational qualification. If you have a certain skill and if you're extremely good at it, nobody can stop you. You can really grow and go places, right? Now, few points specific to India. Back in the US and some other nations, they have covered agriculture, food, water, and wastewater networks all into the circle of critical information infrastructure. However, in India, we have identified few specific sectors in which water and wastewater treatment is not yet into, also because the implementation of SCADA is not big into it. Food is not covered, neither is pharma or medical hospitals and medical industry. So maybe it's time for the leaders, the decision makers up to decide if some more aspects can be covered, because by the mere fact that they are notified as a CII, there will be some sort of a subtle pressure or initiative from their side to increase cybersecurity awareness, to run some programs within the organization and so on and so forth. Though, I mean, I understand that it's easier said than done, but we have to push these aspects. One specific thing which also came up from one of the speakers earlier, a breach is not notified, right? So in the US, it has been documented that more than 85% of the critical information infrastructure is with the private sector. I don't know exactly what is the number, because getting numbers in India is extremely difficult. But let's say even if it's 60% in India, why is it that most of the private sector is not comfortable or scared to share that there is a breach in their organization or their network, and they're not aware or comfortable in sharing that with the respective organization? Now, this whole logic that we are not aware whom to be informed, it's a false logic. I don't think so. Organization running couple of $1 million turnover balance sheet, I'm quite sure that they're aware of it. The main reason is, to draw an analogy, how many Indians today, when they are in trouble, will have the confidence that I'll walk into a police station and my life will be comfortable, right? Barely 20%. It is the same story in the world of cybersecurity. And I have real life examples where one of the largest IT companies a couple of months back were victims to one of a very large ransomware attack. I was called in. They made sure that we solve their problem, but at no point should the law enforcement agencies, whether it's NCIPC or any other person, should know about it. Because if they know about it, instead of engagement, conversation, discussion, it would be more of a grilling, right? So they will grill because they have to earn some brownie points. If this is the attitude that enforcement agencies enact, then rather than making problem to be solved, you're going to go further complicate the whole situation. The idea is whoever wants to solve a problem, they have to win confidence of the industry, the other partners, so that they can work together, engage with each other, so that we can figure it out how to make it happen. Because this problem is not going to go away. This problem is only and only going to increase multiple folds as we speak, right? They can be conferences, they can be policy papers, they can be research papers. It is not going anywhere. and is a ground reality. You have a system, and if it's connected to internet, you are a possible victim of a cybercrime. Maybe you don't even know about it, but you possibly are, right? So maybe in terms of approach, I urge the nodal agencies in these sectors to please consider, or maybe have an SOP of if somebody is reporting an incident, that they are not grilled, but maybe have a subtle soft discussion. Another major point, which I think I mentioned earlier, is attribution to a cyber attack. In most of the cyber attacks, you see that it has come from Russia or China, as if only Russia and China knows about cyber attack and other nations don't know about cyber attack. What if I am making sure that a Russian or a Chinese IP address is used to ensure that I get my foots covered in the web, right? So it is not that every nation is doing it, they are doing it silently. Now the discussion that is happening at the United Nations level is, if I have a cyber attack on my critical information infrastructure, and if it's attributed to nation X, do I have the authority to give it back to them in the same language officially, right? That which is the case currently on land, right? Somebody trespasses into my property or my land, I am free to get back to them, right? There is a discussion happening at the online space if that is allowed. And last, to conclude, not to bore everybody, is why isn't that these agencies, and this can be a regional effort or an organizational effort, why can't we come up with a 10-point or a 5-point SOP, standard operating procedure, and widely publish it on social media and other places, that if you have an incident in your organization, these are the first 5 things to be done. If this is done, then the following 5 steps needs to be conducted. What I'm trying to convey is, can we have capsulated, easy to digest methods and steps so that people can absorb it, digest it, and also spread it to somebody else, right? Why is it that always so-called experts have to come on board? Most of the cyber incidents are very basic in nature, because, and most of them you would see it would be on either on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Why? Because the user has never bothered to check the settings in their own Facebook page and make sure that the security and the privacy and the other aspects should be at the best possible that they are comfortable with, right? Nobody has done it. At least most of the friends that I have spoken to worldwide have never bothered to do it. It's only after I had a conversation with them, they took the initiative to do it. And to conclude again, we will hear of more and more of cyber attacks. In the cult of hacking, we have a very nice saying, difference between a good hacker and a great hacker. A good hacker is someone whom everybody knows. A great hacker is somebody whom nobody will know. And that is the best part, right? They will come, they will do their job very nicely. For them, it is bread and butter. They will get it done, executed, off they go until next victim. So with that, I conclude. Thank you so much, Sanjay.
Thank you. I think that was very interesting. I'm sure everyone would have enjoyed it. With that, I think we have a fair amount of time for question answers. There are some questions which have already come in, so I'm going to shoot it out to the panel. One, I think Dominic just mentioned about from which country do you see maximum cyber attacks on Indian critical infrastructure. So he's answered that it's coming from across the globe, and the difference is in a good hacker and a great hacker. That's all. So you do see them from across. Another question is, how would you rate Pakistan's offensive cyber capabilities? I think that is again for Dominic. So Dominic, if you would like to go ahead and answer.
Yeah, so these are very common questions that Sanjay is also used to getting such questions. But the point is, no offense to anybody, but I'm taking the liberty of speaking frankly here. And I'm sure this question is from a Indian, because we have this innate love and focus towards Pakistan, Pakistan, Pakistan. One tiny country lying somewhere who were born out of us. Why are we so crazy about them? In 24 hours, don't we have something better to do? I mean, trust me, with the number of agencies that I've interacted with and the number of activities happening at various levels, let's say Pakistan's offensive capability is 101 out of 100. Don't worry, trust me, we are taking care of them. We have much bigger challenges in this country. Let's address that. We have our own organizations and networks within the country who are not secure. I'm sure you must be aware, whoever asked this question must be aware of at least 50 companies in his own network. Why don't you call them up and make sure that the cyber defensive systems within their organization is robust to the optimum, right? Because there is nothing in this universe called 100% security. 100% security is a myth. It was, it is, and it always will be. So rather than obsessing about Pakistan and China, we have some of the greatest organizations with the best of the minds and leaders who are taking care of that. Trust me on that, right? They're taking care of it. And to answer your questions, let's say, what is the capability? Let's say it is 99 out of 100, or you can take 101 out of 100. Either way, it doesn't make a difference.
There's another question talking about India's response to Kudankulam breach.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yes, there was a minor breach that happened, but it was well documented. And I have also dabbled myself a little bit in media, so I can speak with a little bit of authority, if I may. You see, most of the journalists or media professionals who cover IT, and I can talk about that in India, not so maybe in US or Europe, do not come from a IT background or a technology background or IT exposure, right? So what do they do? Some become engineers, some become doctors, some become lawyers, pharma guys, blah, blah, blah. And there are some bunch of people who are passionate about writing or the whole romanticism that I want to be a great journalist. As truth happens, reality strikes that once you completed your course, you need a job, right? At that point of time, you cannot pick and choose that I can become a political journalist or a tech journalist. You land up at a place and they assign you the beat. Beat is the space that you cover. Some of them get IT. Some of them enjoy it. Most of them don't, because they find it extremely dry subject, right? And for them, they have to write stories which is spicy, which is good for the readers to read and enjoy. And that is why they say best-selling author, not best writing author, right? When you pick up books, whether at the airport or somewhere else online, you always see New York best-selling author. It is about selling. It was always about selling. We never bothered about it, right? They need to sell certain things. See, if I sell that Kudamkulam, there was a cyber attack, everything is okay. Will you read? No, right? And that is where a lot of officers' job, including Sanjay's and other colleagues, other places, get extremely difficult, because this media management becomes extremely tricky subject. But to answer your question, yes, there was a very minor breach. It is documented, and the right officers at the right place has taken initiatives to check in place. Also, please understand, one of the best brains in this country, apart from missile scientists, are nuclear scientists, right? So the kind of things that they handle, they can easily handle cyber issues.
Oh, thank you. I think the next one is probably for Erez and Oren, saying that in Canada, the last countrywide cyber attacks were possibly done by states. How do you propose to analyze such attacks and without causing political unease between countries? So Erez or Oren, if you would like to answer this.
Yes, definitely. I'll answer first, then Erez will answer.
Sure.
looking at if there's cyber attacks against the state, it's very, very important to understand. And as mentioned earlier by Dominic, it's very hard to attest to the attribution. And this is quite delicate. If you consider current attacks that are affiliated because of a certain individuals, whether are from Iran or other countries, this is a quite delicate manner. And you need to address these accordingly and try to find out and try to make it reasonable, because sometimes using tools, weapons. So today, cyber tools, and if you take the recent incident from FireEye, that a lot of tools have gone out from a very large cybersecurity firm, and these tools are currently spread. And if you take a year back, tools that leaked, and 2 years back from the NSA and from other great nations, these tools are currently used by other organizations, by cybercrime, by cyber terror. And these individuals does not make these specific tools affiliated to certain countries or delegate, because it's not, you cannot attest to an attribution according to the tool. It's just one choice. And I'll give you my simple point of view. When I want to penetrate something, and I come from a technological background, it's not like in the movies where you see people are jumping from countries to countries, doing VPNs every 5 minutes. Come on, this is for movies. I do 2 hops, Gibraltar and Iran, because I don't see nobody picking up the phone and calling Iran saying, hey, can you give me the IP attribution? No, it's not going to work. So it's very delicate, and I don't like people rushing and saying the attribution is such a country or this country. It's very, very delicate. And you need to do a proper investigation, and news are always running too fast to take a headline and try to reach as much publicity as possible. Put investment on proper research, investigate thoroughly, don't rush, because there is an effect. It's a cascade effect. And to run, and sometimes there is the herd motivation. And currently there's such a wave in Israel. Everybody's running and screaming up in bulletins and newspaper. And I'm interviewed in the last 48 hours. I've been 4 times interviewed. And I say the same thing. It might be, but in the same way, it might not be. So unless somebody shows me a smoking gun, it's hard to convince me. So it has an effect on the countrywide, because if you take an attack and you attest to the affiliation to a certain country, for example, Iran, this has implication that the country needs to be involved, needs to take responsibility, okay? So the adversary, to say that it's a certain country has an impact on the country's involvement. So if I was a company, and I would say I'm becoming, instead of somebody being attacked, I'm becoming a victim, and I'm asking the country to support me, even though I'm a normal company, a public trade company. So the country shouldn't be involved. The company should be involved protecting its critical key asset, transportation, gas, oil, finance, the key areas that involves our livelihood, okay, and not other things. So that is my point on these critical infrastructures. And I believe that is the first step. Do proper research and try to find out exactly, and then become more vigilant in this. Erez, you want to add a few words?
Yeah, thanks. I would say that if cyber attack occur on a commercial company, then we have only one person guilty, the general manager or the CEO of this company. And it doesn't matter if the attacker was operated by a different nation, or it was a crime, cyber crime gang, or anybody else, because it doesn't matter who your attacker is. Your responsibility is to protect your assets, and you cannot protect your assets by trying to do some kind of a counter attack or something like that if you are a commercial company. If you are a nation, then in order to start thinking about the counter reaction, then you need to have a very strong evidence who the attacker is. And probably you can get to those evidence only by means of intelligence. And I mean a state intelligence, not the business intelligence or other companies that provide those kind of information. You need to be very certain about your target, because the consequences of a wrong decision could be harmful to your own country. Actually, as Oren mentioned, anyone can have or can has the tools that a nation has, because of those leakage, because of there are very there are many people very talented outside there that do not work for the government, but they can develop very strong tools, and when they operate them, then you won't be certain if that was a private, let's say, gang, or it was a national activity. And more than that, when we're talking about cyber, when you smell the smoke, you are not sure that you see the gun. And when you see the gun, you're not sure what finger is pushing the trigger. And when you see the finger, you are not sure to which hand it is connected. And when you see the hand, you're not sure to which body it is connected. So all those helps all over won't give you a solid ground to make a counter attack. So of course, you might try to say to everybody, hey, don't mess with me. I'm a very strong country, and I'm not obliged to make my counter attack with terms of cyber attacks. Maybe I will launch a rocket if you start to mess with me with cyber attacks. But also, this is only the kind of steps that a nation can take. And you can see, when there were huge attacks on commercial companies, CEOs lost their jobs. And of course, with them, when the CIOs and CISOs, if they were over there, the responsibility is very, very clear and very, very sharp when something happens. The CISO goes, the CIO goes, and then the CEO goes. We saw it in Target, we saw it in many other cases around. But this is very complicated. The only clear and good answer that I can give you to have a real, I would say, insurance or a real assurance about your safety is to be protected and to be sure that you are protected. There's no other way. You must, as a CEO, to protect your company with the best tools and the best practices that you can get for your money. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is correct. If I may just try and make it simple for people to understand, what Oren and Erez have mentioned is that the first step is to do a detailed technical analysis. And once you've done that research, which is coupled with intelligence, you can then look at the second step, which is, which I had also mentioned in my remarks, is the legal and economic aspects. And then the third one is the political aspect, or the political, final call will be taken politically. And you've seen some cases already going on between the US, the UK, Australia, China, etc. So I think there are enough cases to try and give you what's happening and what's not happening. So at the end of the day, it's not a technical call, but it becomes a political call. But after going through all these motions of technical, economic, legal, etc. I think there's one for, before I go to some people who have raised their hands, there's one for Professor Triveni Singh. since he mentioned about awareness and skills which are required. So the question is, do we have sufficient trainers in this area? Of course, this area, skill issue is a global issue. So do we have enough trainers to train and create this awareness?
Yeah, I feel that we have enough trainer. The problem is that when we design the course, we don't allot enough time for the trainees. Like in the police department, if we're going to do a course on cybercrime investigation, say either 3 days or 4 days, 5 days, irrespective of our educational background, whether I am from the humanities or from the law or medicine or from technology or from computer, each one is allotted only 3 days. And in those 3 days, we are taught hardware, software, cyber law, ethical hacking, each and everything. It's beyond ken of general police officers. They cannot make out even the terms, technology. These are very technical words. Cyber forensic is specific, and it's a very technical domain in itself. Cyber law, you cannot teach cyber law within 2 or 3 lectures. So my view is that once we design the cybercrime investigation course, or even a course on cybersecurity fundamentals, then we have to think about the time frame. We must give a proper time, like 15 days, 3 months, and we should select only those who have some technical background. And so we can categorize into those who have technical background. They can be given 15 days training. Those who don't have any exposure to the science and technology, they can be given training for 2-3 months. So we have technology, and we have Center of Excellence. We are best training institute like CBI, NPA, and State Training Center. We do have experts, and in some of the cases we outsource this technically skill to corporate sector. Like for example, here in my cybercrime police station, we have outsourced this to a third party. They're the best speaker. They come and train the people. Problem is that of designing the course, syllabi, and the time. Everywhere, I always see all over India, everywhere the same thing is happening. 3 days, 2 days, 1 day training program. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we'll take a question from Sai Charan Hossainpur.
Okay. My question is to Mr. Dominic and Professor Triveni. I'm an exchange student at IDC Herzliya from Jindal University. So my question is this: would it be feasible in India to have a separate 3-digit or 4-digit number like we have for reporting crime or child abuse, like 1098 or 100? Is it feasible for individual victims, not for corporate companies? I'm asking this question only because yesterday there was a scam of 26 lakhs. And this being, we had a session of terror financing in the morning. 26 lakhs is a lot for conducting any activities. Is that possible? And the second question being, in terms of India, have you seen use of online fraud or use of copyright infringement, such as selling Netflix accounts or Amazon accounts for cheaper prices, going to activities of terrorism or any other funding any other activities? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. May I reply?
Yes, please. Yes, please. You're the expert.
Yes.
Yeah. May I reply?
Yes, please go ahead, Triveni.
So we do have such number. MHA has issued a separate number, 10566. I'm not sure about that, but 3-4 digits they have already issued. In our EP, we have given them 1090 for women child specific crime. Then 112 we can lodge their complaint, and we have Android based application itself. You can download the UP cop, and you can file your FIR sitting inside your room. And even MHA has given you this facility, online reporting portal, National Cybercrime Reporting Portal, cybercrime.gov.in. So you don't have to, if you find any crime happening against you or with anyone who is associated with you, you can advise him that go to cybercrime.gov.in and you can register your cyber crime cases. We have 1076 in UP also. You can get your problem registered in voice. You don't have to write anything. Simply you just call and some operator will be noting down your application and it will be just as good as FIR. It immediately gets integrated into FIR and put into our CCTV's database. So these are the facilities. The problem is that we are not aware about that. We try our best to take it to the people through conferences, seminar, and electronic and news media. Still, the people don't have idea about such numbers. But gradually, there is some awareness. Like for example, if I'm talking about the MHA website, which are especially created for reporting cybercrime, cybercrime.gov.in. In last 14 months, cases related with UP are 32,000. I mean, 32,000 people, they have got their FIR registered through that option only. I'm not talking about the state agency like police station and our cybercrime police station. I'm talking about the MHA. From MHA side, we have got 32,000 plus cases. So gradually, the people are getting aware about all these options. Thank you.
You want to add anything to this, Dominic?
Just one thing. Saicharan, I'm assuming that you are a student.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Before asking this question, did you care to type something and check if there is something like this?
Yes, sir, I did. I did check the number. It was a 6-digit number, like Professor Triveni said.
Yes.
But the question I asked is, in India, as you know, so people are just learning about UPI, I have uncles and relatives who are just using the net, simple things. So when they fall to any cybercrime, they do not have the knowledge so as to move that fast, report online, move that fast. And as you said, sir, earlier, I was that one of the student who sat and listened to people talk, but I was interested, that being different. But I did check, sir. So I'm asking, what is the process can be simpler? Is it possible in India? We have different education levels, varying education levels, varying demography, varying confidence to go to police. Is it feasible at least?
No, I really wish, or for the matter, even Sanjay would have really wished that matters were so easy. But the point is, let's assume that 911 is world famous thanks to the movies and Western awareness. Here we have 100. But let's say we don't know the dedicated cyber police crime number. Even then, if they dial 100, I'm sure the operator there will guide them to the right place, right? The question is, how many of us would really take the pain of picking up the phone and dialing the number and speak to somebody? Because most of the people will keep quiet because it is a matter of shame, right? That we have lost money or somebody scammed me or somebody did something with me. So like a lot of other previous speakers also mentioned, yes, there are helplines, there are challenges that all the agencies are trying to address, but it's easier said than done. It is the citizens who have to take the initiative steps, and and that is where I see a lot of youngsters and the youth who can play a very big role, because they are online most of the time, right? They get to learn and understand a lot of things. They should discuss this, debate this, do cyber week in their respective colleges, do awareness poster campaign and things like that, and maybe even go to nearby schools and colleges and talk about this, because that is the only way you can do that. Because if everybody thinks that the government is going to do that, it is not going to possible. It is impossible. It is beyond the strength of government agencies to do this. The only way we can succeed is civil society taking active role and participation, contributing and making life easier for everybody.
And the follow-up questions are online fraud and terror financing.
I didn't get the question.
Which Professor Triveni will be able to answer.
Yeah. In fact, when you were talking about the terror financing, this is a particular domain which are dealt by NIA, National Investigating Agency. Even at the state level, we do have a separate departments. Like here in UP, we have a different department. What we do, if any crime, if that is associated with some criminal element and those who are terrorists, only we can say that it's a terror financing. First, you will have to look at the transaction pattern. Then we have to look at those who are beneficiary, and if they are criminal, only then we can say that there was terror financing. Otherwise, financial crime on the daily basis, you are saying there are lots of financial cyber crime happening on the daily basis. Sometimes bank server is being attacked. Sometimes customers' profile are attacked. Sometimes by use of social engineering tricks and techniques, they're fooling the public and they're getting the OTP and online credentials and banking credentials they are taking, and then siphoning your entire accounts, money. So as far as terror financing is concerned, terror financing you can say only when it's related with terrorists. Otherwise, normally, and I am the person who is not dealing with the terror financing, so I cannot be. This question is I cannot.
No, my question was use of online fraud to fund terrorists. I mean, if that is your domain, it's okay, or else I can understand.
Yeah, I can understand your question. Since I haven't investigated such a case, definitely there are lots of online fraud which may be associated with terror financing,
Okay.
but I am not exposed to such kind of investigation.
Thank you, sir.
We have the next question from Kedar Kulkarni.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity, and thank you for all the panelists for again an illuminating discussion. One common theme which has been identified in all the panelists is that irrespective of the fact that you might have the best of the technologies, the weakest link or the weakest issue is always the humans. And that is where obviously the awareness campaign has to be there as a part of state response also. My question related to this is, few years ago, CERT in Computer Emergency Response Team, India, had launched a Cyber Swachhata Kendra Abhiyan. And they had asked the citizens to download certain softwares so as to reduce the vulnerability. So is it possible, given the fact that we have multiplicity of antiviruses, multiplicity of platforms, to have some state-sponsored security tools, basic minimum tools, so that we can reduce the vulnerability, because common citizens do not know which tools to be used. I mean, we can use on ABC antivirus, XYZ antivirus, but each one of them will have some or the other pluses and minuses. So is it possible to have state-sponsored security tools as a bare minimum thing?
I answer this question.
Kedar, whom is the question directed?
Any of the panelists can answer. Any of the panelists.
Well, I volunteer to give the first answer. The state cannot actually defend any business in the country. So the state is focused on critical infrastructure, because that touches so many, those infrastructure touch so many different businesses, so they should be defended and get help from the state. I mean, in a, let's say, in a heavy manner. Then the smallest, the more smaller businesses, they cannot be dealt by the state. Just imagine how many businesses there are in India. What government can deal with so many businesses, but still all those businesses are exposed to cyber threats. So the country should, or the state should think how they can contribute an added value to those small businesses with the knowledge that is in the possession of the country. In Israel, I can share with you, we have a lot of experience with that because we understood that problem about, I would say, 12 or 15 years ago, and we understood that even though that we mainly deal with the critical infrastructure, we should start and we should write a methodology for small businesses and give them some kind of good advices that it will be their responsibility to deploy them. Just take into consideration that in a medium business, there are about 40 different cyber tools to defend its business. So in order to deal, you are right, in order to deal with all those tools, you need to be an expert. And a business is going to make money from his business, he's not a specialist in cyber. So there's a lot of ecosystem that develop around these new threats, like there was, I don't know, 100 or 120 years ago, the car was invented, and a whole ecosystem was developed around the car and motors and etc. and etc. This has happened exactly the same in cyber. There is a responsibility of the state for the critical infrastructure, for the main things that connected to those threats, but medium businesses, small businesses, even large enterprises should take care of themselves, and they should, and any CEO should be sure that he has the right answer to the question, how better are you today than you were yesterday concerning cyber threats? This is all the story on one question.
Thank you. I have the last question now from Apurva Mishra.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bahl. My question is to Mr. Erez, Mr. Oren, and also to Dr. Bahl, if he could share his thoughts. One of the big questions that countries today are facing is, when does an attack on your cyber systems merit a conventional military response? And on as far as the question of damage to critical infrastructure is concerned, there is no doubt that sometimes it can merit a conventional military response. But my question is, can you make an argument, can you envisage a situation in which even an attack on a private company of a country can possibly merit a conventional military response by the country? Do you think it's possible to justify that under international law in terms of your understanding? Not just an attack on critical infrastructure, but an attack on a private corporation which belongs to which is sort of domiciled in a country.
Yeah, Erez, if you would like to go ahead, and then after that, Oren.
Well, just lately in Germany, there was a cyber attack on a hospital, and a guy died in an intensive care department. The German police is now investigating that case as a murder case. They said, all right, this is a murder done by cyber means, but this is a murder. And I can tell you from my experience that medical devices are very vulnerable to cyber attacks, because nobody thought about cyber or cyber threats when he developed the X-ray machine or the MRI or other machine. I can tell you, when they first put me into an MRI machine, and in the magnetometer tried to make that noise, the only thought that had on my mind was, is it really the technician that operates the machine? Or maybe there is some hacker somewhere in the world that can now make the magnetic flood, instead of, I don't know, 1 to 60,000. And, and just flash me with a magnetic flash. So those kind of devices should be taken care. There's now a start. There are many, I know in Israel, the situation in Israel, there are pretty nice number of startups that deals with defending medical devices and large machines and hospitals. because we've seen in the Corona time that hospitals were attacked by ransomware. And when you are in a time of epidemic, then hospitals that should become a critical infrastructure. And this is a good target for attackers that want to get some money from ransomware. So the answer is pretty wide, but as a short answer, medical devices are very vulnerable, and they should be taken care in a very high manner of consideration from any hospital management.
Oren, would you like to add something to this? Do we have Oren, or we've lost him? Probably we've lost him.
Cyber attack.
Yeah. No, Mr. Erez, just to quickly follow up on the point you made, I mean, there is no doubt that the attack which happens on a hospital or a private corporation is a cyber attack. My question was slightly different. My question was, can a cyber attack on a private corporation ever merit a state response from the government where this corporation is domiciled? So, you know, in international law, it is now allowed for countries to respond through conventional military means to a cyber attack. That is legal under international law and various interpretations of international law doctrines. But can an attack on a private corporation also merit a state response, and can that state response be justified under international law?
I can tell you, just in short meaning, if it was a missile attack on that private company, then the state should react. I'm sure we agree on that.
Yeah.
Well, now think about the Sony case that happened like 4 years ago. The American, they respond. They didn't launch rockets against North Korea, but they took steps in the cyber arena, and they react. It was not Sony that react against the North Korean. It was the administration. So I guess that gives a good answer for that.
Yeah, and you can economic sanctions, etc. And of course, there are multiple dimensions to this, but I think we are just about hitting the time. And with that, I would like to thank India Foundation and IDC for giving me this opportunity to host this excellent session with such excellent and learned panelists. And thank you for all the questions that all of you have asked, very enlightening. Over to you, Soumya, and thank you, Mr. Bansal.
Thank you.